Hello. Hi, everyone.
Greetings.
Well, nice to see you all. Hello. It's been fantastic listening to everybody ahead of me. The keynotes and everyone. It's quite inspiring after having a morning of total system failures and barely minutes before the event started. I was restored, and so my faith in technology. Hello, everyone. I'm Lubna Dajani. I'll be your moderator today for this amazing panel about the complex relationship between humanity and technology. We have an amazing host, set of wonderful speakers, and without further ado, I am going to ask Elisabetta to start with an introduction, as there's many of us here in a short time. We're going to make this as rapid fire, as engaging as possible. If we can get interactions from the speakers, from the audience, that would be great. Otherwise, let's see how much fun we can make this hour. That should be like 4 hours in itself. So Elisabetta, please.
Yes, hi everyone. Hi, Lubna. It's great to be here, actually. I'm a CEO and founder of MIAT, which stands for Multiverse Institute for Arts and Technology. We provide the training, production, and research services to different kind of brands all over sectors, and we have an academy where we strengthen the talents of the future. We create original immersive experiences and research, all through connecting both the academy and the production.
Pass the baton, maybe Luiza, and then maybe you'll pass the baton.
Yeah. Well, hi everyone. I'm Luiza. I'm a lawyer. I have my own law firm in Portugal, and the focus of our law firm is pretty much putting together technology and at least the legal system as much as we can. And our law firm is also specialized in Web3 and Web3 matters. So yeah, trying to merge those areas that have historically not been going along so well together. But yeah, that's our mission. I think Sergiu can go next.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm Sergiu, CEO and co-founder of RTVev. RTVev is a platform where we're combining traditional art with digital art. We see the future of art will be a mixture of both. We also see a lot of creatives and new media artists coming and going more into the digital space, but also in love with the traditional gallery museums spaces. So we started as a tool 5 years ago, and now we have on our platform more than 220,000 artists from all over the world. We are working together with museums, institutions and universities, and try to explore the space to see where art can go and how artists and creatives can leverage technology. And I'm nominating Miranda.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Miranda. I'm the Director of Public Policy at the XR Association, which is the trade organization based in Washington, D.C., representing the AR, VR, and MR industry. We've got a full range of member companies, everything from the big headset manufacturers to small startup platform developers to corporate end users. And our mission is to promote the responsible development of XR technologies through research, establishing best practices, advocacy, and educating lawmakers. And I will pass the baton to Jay.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Good to be here. I'm Jay, one of the co-founders and inventors of the Ozone Metaverse platform. And Ozone is a new graphics engine and web-based platform to make virtual worlds easy in the browser for enterprise.
Dr. Ritesh, unmute.
Sorry, I have to pass the baton. Yes, Dr. Jain, please.
Yes, unmute.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here and good to know you all. And my name is Ritesh Jain. I'm a founder of Infinite and the humanizing credit and credit card experience. I come from the banking and payments. So I can proudly say, like, if you use Apple Pay, I've got a role behind it and leading Apple Pay for Apple and Visa in the past. I sit as a member advisor on G20 GPFI, so I put my dollar where my mouth is. So I'm a member advisor for Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion and founding member of World Metaverse Council as well. So pleasure to be here. Thank you.
As you can see, we have an amazing set of representatives of the whole value chain that needs to come together to make a change where change is needed. So I'm the founder of Alternet, and Alternet started as a chapter in a book about the role of the enterprise in future cities. And I was asked to give my views as a futurist. And I talked about a future where everyone is connected and technology is woven into everyday life, and asked the question of what role do we want to play in a future of humanity as technology is woven into everyday life. And while it brings us together, it can be and untether us from where we are, where who we are is defined by, and where we are is defined by who we are rather than where we physically are. But it is also a double-edged sword in that it can also be the noose. So where do we find ourselves today? If we stop and reflect, it's a place where we've magnified some of some of principles that are based on fear and domination, and now we are in a position to make a change. And the metaverse and other technologies around it can exponentially change the direction of our future, either where the accelerated end, or we can, with the simple choice to make a change. We have all the tools. We can wake up tomorrow in a new world. So I will lead with Dr. Ritesh. How do you feel? What do you think would be the most critical thing we can do today?
See, the most critical thing that we do today, it's about to learn from the mistakes that we have done in the past, and not only us, but everybody else's. It's quite a big bite to chew on, right? As we talk about the humanity, especially in the context of the technology, we have got a significant responsibility as a technocrats or as founders. So as I said, I come from the banking and payments, and the biggest pain that I see around, it's not about just the unserved community, but the underserved community. Right? So technology, if I just pick up one example about the financial institutions, they could play a significant role in humanizing technology. Right? For various reasons, whether they do it or they don't, it's a different thing. Right? So especially when I started, I'll give you my own example. When I was leading one of the largest or tier one bank, I came out and I started a fintech, a focus on humanizing credit card experience for the people. Because what I truly believe that the credit cards are one of the most beautiful products that have been created in the history of financial services. Who is going to give you 30 to 45 days interest-free credit apart from your family, right? But when your family gives you that money, they've got all the best intentions towards you, but whether it is the same intention of the financial institutions or the technology that they have implemented. So we all, not only from the financial institutions, but I would say whoever is using technology and leading the way forward, they have got a significant responsibility to make it more ethical and equitable for everybody. As I said, it's a lot to chew on. It's a big bite.
Especially when started with talking about with your financial background, I thought I'd pick about our economic models as they're rather extractive, and I think is it late fees and such are some of the biggest revenue generators. So I think we need to change perhaps some of the way we do finance and how we think of money. But with that, I thought I would pass it to Miranda. Maybe we could talk a bit about maybe policy.
Yeah, no, well, I think Dr. Jain had a great start. Is just learning from the lessons and some of the challenges that were happening in the previous iterations of the technology. And because XR, the metaverse, is so nascent, business models, everything from legislation to regulation, nothing is baked in yet. And so I think it's really encouraging to have seen, people coming together at GatherVerse and other fora like the Metaverse Standards Forum, the World Economic Forum, to think about how to imbue this technology with ethical frameworks from the start. I'm seeing a lot of conversations around accessibility and how we can bridge the technology gaps with XR. So I think it's a really good time to be having these conversations. In terms of policymakers, I think there's a huge role for them to play in charting the future of XR and the metaverse. Step one from XRA's perspective is just educating folks, mainly in the US, but abroad as well, as to what are XR technologies, what is the metaverse, what's the current state of play, how to kind of separate fact from science fiction. And I think that we've seen, great interest from U.S. policymakers in this technology, and so I'm very, optimistic about its future.
Yeah, yes, so am I. I think the metaverse, especially with its, as it creates such an immersive experience that we can actually leverage it to make the changes necessary in policy across many of our practices, including the fiduciary responsibility for profitability at any cost. Otherwise, how could we really ever get to sustainability, anything worth of wanting to sustain? I think we need to fundamentally change. And I think maybe this could be a sincere catalyst to that. The arts, I think, is make for a very wonderful Trojan horse, I think, because nothing is more powerful than the arts in communicating the best and the worst of human behavior. And it's probably artists are the first to leverage innovation. Sergiu.
Yes, thank you very much. I think also when we started Artivive, I worked as a creative in an agency, as a creative director for many years, and I saw the power of technology. The problem that we had back then when we were doing amazing campaigns for Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche worldwide was that we were focusing just on the technology. We were using AR. And in all the campaigns that we had, you could, place your car in front of the house, or you just scan your own car, change the rims and the colors. Also go into the car and use AR as a manual to understand all the buttons, what they're doing. But we, after a few years, looked at the numbers of the users, and I was shocked to see that there was no adoption. And I tried to somehow understand why. And I think the problem was us being so focused on the technology, we didn't see the value that we were creating. So we were not adding anything. It was just a gimmick on consuming the information that people would find in the catalog or at the dealer or online on a website. It was just a fancy way to see it. And I was still very much in love with the way how augmented reality can transport and build stories, connect, the real space that we are in with the digital extension. And I had a thesis: what would happen if we're taking this technology, make it as easy, as simple as possible, and give it to the creatives, to the artists? And that was a very good decision to go this way, because we found then a lot of artists that maybe were more traditional, but were curious about the digital space, and they wanted to build new narratives and try to find where are actually the borders and how can they cross this border of the technology. So very fast, we learned about how we could add value in the experience of art and somehow bring traditional art and museums and galleries into 2023 by just leveraging this technology. And I have a very cool example that I have to share with you. We did a project with Belvedere Museum in Vienna, where we worked together with the people in the museum, and we found out that some of the paintings of Egor Schiele, which is an Austrian painter who died 100 years ago, was overpainted. And then we tried to find out why. And we also had X-rays to showcase how it really looked like. We built it in augmented reality and told the story that his wife, that was depicted in that painting, was dressed too poorly for matching the image of the collection that the director had at that time. So when he presented the painting, the director said, "I'm sorry, but she's not dressed for my collection." So Sheila took the painting, overpainted it to a version that the director liked, and now this is the artwork that we're celebrating in the museum. What we did, we just took this story and recreated it in augmented reality so people could experience it, and also zoomed in to show what the differences were. And funny enough, we found out if you're looking very close at the painting, you'll find bits of the original color of the original painting of the first version. And this was what people were doing, putting the phone away, not thinking about the whole technology, discovering these bits of colors and saying, "Oh yeah, that's true. Look here, it's orange." And this is what people are then afterwards taking with them home. They will not talk about the augmented reality, the technology that they experience and how it worked. They will talk about the experience that they had. Also with payment, right? So we're just having it in our phone and we just not think about it. It's like we don't have to take our cards with us anymore. Or when we want to get from A to B, we just using Google Maps and see all the technologies that are inside there.
So your comments bring so many thoughts to mind. It brings out the importance of design. It's the importance of the experiences we're creating, and it's how immersive creates a sensory-based learning experience. But it also makes me want to ask, with the advances like in technologies like the use of Midjourney and other AI tools, where would that leave us in terms of authenticity? I mean, I love it. I think it's amazing. But I would love to hear from Elisabetta on that, and then maybe we can. There's many points here to cover.
Well, in terms of authenticity is good question. I think, that we are in a moment where all the emerging technologies, immersive technologies, of course, also AI is bringing us to a kind of moment where they are like a co-pilot of experiences. Of course, when you work with AI, you work as a co-design of, any kind of experience that could also lead it to an immersive experience or Web3 experiences, or what will be like the metaverse. And I think that one of the, it is important to understand and underline that the driving forces, behind the creation of a Web3 and the metaverse, it's all these immersive and emerging technologies, because they are becoming the next computing platform requiring new skills, as Sergio was saying, combining both artistic but also technological competencies to enable the next technological switch and also the company's evolution. And, we train every day what we call art tech, the art tech of the future. So they are a hybrid curriculum coming from technology, science, mixing interest from the world of gaming, design, fashion, also architecture, but also from making storytelling. And they are the main resources on which really metaverse experiences and worlds are being built. We have countries we were all over the world. They are most advanced, UK or US or even Japan, they don't find this kind of curriculum, and also companies are blocking their evolution. So it's very also important when you talk about authenticity to understand that we need to of course be authentic, but also to create the jobs of the future. They are immersive creative producers, digital creators and directors for immersive content, XR producers, showrunners, XR developers, software engineers, and they have divergent minds, which is very interesting because you have to train them with a very hands-on new methodology that of course we use. They have creative skills, but combined strictly with the technological expertise, and they will be the leaders of the future. So we transfer ethics in each training that we do with them, because we have a big bias at international level. If you think about how now the metaverse platforms or virtual spaces are created, most of the people are younger men, and that's the culture there. So it's, for us, is a big bias at global level.
Yes. The bias, because the technology is magnifies the biases that are baked in within us, and it's probably what makes it so dangerous, because it becomes exponential. We talk a lot about ethics, in all the speakers ahead as well talked about ethics and how we need to ensure that there are ethics. I often ask myself, as I work on a lot of ethical standards, especially when it comes to empathic AI and the likes, the question is, whose ethics, and how do we work together, as this is a transdisciplinary problem, clearly, and how do we, and cross-sectoral and global, how do we manage, and Luiza, I'm probably going to hit you with that, or to have our laws and our governance and our policy or diplomacy to bring us across so many boundaries and so many sectors and languages and intents.
Well, that's a tough one.
Not for a lawyer.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, the regulators are right now trying to first get a lay of the land. So we don't have, as of today, any really deep regulations on anything related to Web3 as we know it, because we don't have the basic concepts laid out. So I think most regulators are now first trying to put the concepts out and have it more standardized. So what is a metaverse? What's a copyright when we are talking about digital art? What's trademark? What are the limits of any of that? So when using AI to do art, is it considered a source of inspiration if you put an input with the name of another artist? Or it's a brand new art because inspiration is something that has been in the art world since forever. So we're still trying to get to those limits. And I think the first step, it was a big step, was, okay, let's try to put the concepts out. And even with that, we're kind of struggling a bit. We've been seeing with Mika, for example, we're in V7, 8, and every time it's about to go out, we have to take 3 steps back and change some things. And in the other hand, we have regulators trying to, okay, this is something that's growing every day, so we got to do something about it, because otherwise this is just going to become absolute chaos. So we have SEC giving a lot of decisions around, and then in one way it's really good because we're seeing that they're trying to regulate something. In another way, the decisions coming out have not been the most concise possible. So it generates a lot of friction between parties that are involved. So how do I think regulators would go about it? First of all, I think it's a bit of a community thing that we are trying to, first of all, educate people that are actually making the laws on it. So for them to understand what is that they are working with, we have to understand that technology will always go so much faster than the regulators, than who is writing the laws. Law, it's not a fast process, and technology is the polar opposite of that. So we kind of have to educate them and kind of pick our fights. So, okay, let's start with definitions. Okay, what's important? It's a regulation for metaverse, it's a regulation for currencies, a regulation for NFT, or it's, okay, let's do something more broad, and then specific regulations can kind of go on parallel with it. So it's a lot of details. And I think as of now, regulators are trying to raise technology, which I don't think is the best approach. I mean, they ran to do a cryptocurrency regulation, and then regulations were not as detailed as we wish. And now they're running to do something about metaverse. It's also not as detailed as we wish. So we are starting to have a lot of little regulations with a lot of holes. And then after, we have just to try to patch them together and see what goes about. So I think it's about, like, okay, guys, let's just breathe, slow down, and do one by one, or at least let's do something general, and then with calm, do things together. Otherwise, we'll be a big patch thing that's Frankenstein wise, and it's not going to serve anyone.
I laugh because it brings me back to that it's a transdisciplinary, it's cross sectors, it's cross ages, cross cultures, but it's really when I find that when I think anyway, and Jay, you tell me because you're the one building the stuff. It's it's an integration of all of these, and we continue to look at things in silos or just one thing and wait till we get in the conversation about, here we're talking about this, we even talk about robotic rights. Meanwhile, we have other people who have zero access, not just to the technology, but to even a comfortable space to be in so that they can access the technology. But Jay, as you were creating, do you find that that there is, we've talked about NFTs, there's quantum compute, there's fog, and moving to the edge. Do you see that when you think systems that metaverse you're developing or solutions, and of course any of you, please let's make this. I don't want to play around Robin. It's difficult because there's enough of us, and when you feel like you want to speak, just this is it's a round table, so I'll just I'll hold the veto, and that's it.
Nice.
And I'll try to be but do you find that it's an integration? Or do you think of the metaverse alone without the NFTs or without blockchain or without AI or without big data or
No, absolutely, and thank you. First off, really good to be here, and big kudos to Chris and the entire GatherVerse team for really putting this together. And I was very impressed to hear it's happening around the world on all the continents. So really big kudos on that, and you guys have the full support of Ozone Metaverse platform. Yes, Ms. Dajani, your question is great, and I will quote one of my mentors and one of our partners in Early Angels, who talked about the convergence point, right? Paul Gordon out of London. Hey, Paul, if you see this. So Paul has told me early on, we're coming at a point of convergence where what's happening is lots of technologies that have been in the making for a long time. As we all know, none of this is like brand new, but the ability to actually implement and deploy what I would call commercial ready or mass market ready solutions in terms of VR, blockchain, artificial intelligence. These are like the three main technologies that we see really converging and starting to get intertwined and basically stacked up in a new stack, if you will, right? Think of this like and which we feel at Ozone, and I think lots of our colleagues in the ecosystem agree, is the next computing platform, right? So just think of this like the mobile apps revolution, right, or the internet revolution, and you can keep going back in multiple time segments. And when these moments happen, this convergence moment happen, then you have a whole new really field, right, of digital what is important to us, human computer interface, right? And so if we go back let's go back like 30-40 years, right, when the personal computers was coming out. Personal computing was made possible by certain things, right? The transistors, the chips, the screens, etc. Then the internet was become possible because of these network capabilities, right? Sorry if I'm oversimplifying for the the super technologists on the call, but then you go to mobile apps. So mobile apps, if you think about it, we couldn't have had mobile apps if there were no cell phones, right? I mean, right? If there was no iPhone, there would be no mobile apps. And so one innovation enables really a whole new set of digital landscape, right? So mobile apps are a whole new landscape. So now we feel the same is happening. So definitely, no, this should not be looked at like totally separate. And to build on Ms. Castro's point with the regulators, I think you have a very good point, Luisa. Is a lot of the I mean, think about it. It's like you go to see your doctor, right? You're not an expert in medicine, right? You're only thinking about, my low back is hurting me, right? And then the doctor starts looking at your feet and you're like, what? But he knows, right? So I feel like regulators are kind of taking the same approach. They're just looking at one thing at a time, totally in silo. And that should be, I think we should all as an industry take a little step back and say, okay, what's the end game, right? What's the end in mind? And at Ozone, we're very clear about this, right? We understand the metaverse as the new interface, right? The UI, essentially. The data sets running the applications that we have now in the World Wide Web will remain, right? We're not going to just ditch all the stuff that exists and start from scratch, but we actually add to that, right? So we take the existing data set that becomes accessible via immersive virtual world and augmented reality. And then you have these new data sets that get added to this, which is the AI and the blockchain, right? New sources of data. And then with that, somehow we're gonna make up the future of the internet. So pretty exciting time, and definitely we believe they all kind of, one cannot exist without the other, really. Lubna, you're muted, just in case you're muted, Lubna.
Yes, thank you very much. I said yes. Thank you. I said yes, and that talks about innovations. It's an integration of innovations up and down the stack of technology, right? And then and I mean technology, specifically information and communication technology. So it's that data, being able to communicate and process data and then express it and experience it. And now we're extending it to a very sensory experience, and the whole world is. I imagine it like a mesh over it, where we're all sort of like the buses that have the electrical wire that connects, but we're all like disconnected. Right? Hopefully, we're not going to go to being as individuals like the Borg and in smart cities that are basically surveillance only. And any of that all of that would require a shift in mindset and where we place priorities and how we measure success, well-being. Is it about vertical wealth accumulation, or I should say wealth hoarding and resource hoarding, or is it about horizontal wealth enablement, where you can have extend your reach and access, and your worth is based on how far your impact reaches, and rather than your access and the access that you're enabling. So, do you not? When you combine the advances of, if you put that mindset, and then you look at what technology can do and how it can advance all of our capabilities across the sciences, do you not feel that our responsibility now is to step up to the plate with use cases and implementations that would apply the technology in a way that starts to restore? And what do you think? And if you agree, because I think you're nodding, then what do you think we can do in collaboration together now to make that change?
I'll start on this, but this is probably like a roundtable discussion. I'm sure everybody has, like, because this is, I think, the core, right, of what GatherVerse is all about, is the impact element.
Because it's not just about that, it's the metaverse, because at the end of the day, we're stitching the physical with the digital, right? We're taking data sets and digital twins, and ultimately, where are we living, and how do we want to extend this access in a dignified way?
Exactly. No, 100%. I would actually take this one step further. It's not even about what the technology is. It's about us as a humanity coming to a point to say, we need to do things that have impact. We cannot just be, as a species, just seeking the more, right? You use the word hoarding, just the more, because then you end up in kind of monopoly situations. You end up into
It's extractive.
Yeah, it's extractive. It's definitely not promoting innovation. And you talk horizontal. I mean, let's face it, right? Call it economy 1.0 or world 1.0, right? Or humanity 1.0. This concept of impact and horizontal and giving, we're basically limited to nonprofit and churches, right? Essentially, right? There was no, companies would make donations and so on, but it was much more of a PR stunt, as we all got to find out, right, than real driven impact. And that's what we think the opportunity is in this next generation of Web3 focus. And that's where the Web3 community has a chance to bring up a solution, because it's not out there yet, right? I mean,
but Dr. Ritesh I think has something to say. And you mentioned
yes, Dr.
Web3,
Ritesh.
so
Yes.
I mean, especially tying up, because it all goes back to the money, right? And how do we take that to value?
First and foremost, I would like to set a baseline over here, because like I heard quite a lot and I've seen quite a lot Citibank talking about the 13 trillion opportunity in the metaverse and the different reports, right? But let's be realistic, we are in early days, right? So
what can you clarify? 13 million
13 trillion opportunity in the
trillion
metaverse over the period of time, right?
in what way? Buying real estate in the metaverse, or using the metaverse in a way to educate,
using the
to
metaverse,
extend?
creating the real estate, creating the different transactional applications in the metaverse as well, and combining the metaverse combinatorial technologies, which will bring in over the period of time in that way. Now, I would like to set a baseline over here. What I really think, it's early days for the metaverse. What we are going to see, it's into a staged approach, right? The emerging technology, that's what we are seeing today, and that will continue for next few years, and then it will move into the adaptive approach, and then we are talking about the maturity over the period of time. And here the stages that I'm talking about, it's about like not year and after year and after year. Here we are talking about a decade, right? Because what we are seeing in metaverse today, it's a web3 influenced technology and the applications in the metaverse, and then later on we are going to see the more combinatorial technologies in the metaverse, right? But you said very good thing about one of my fellows said about the regulations, right? I completely agree. In terms of the regulators are always going to catch up with the technology. They are not going to be ahead of it. But let me give you a view what I have experienced this morning, right? So I have personally witnessed as an invitee on the launch of the UPI and the Singapore link. So let me give you a bit of brief about when we are talking about the technologies emerging over the period of time. And here I'm moving a bit slightly from the metaverse, right?
Right.
So I'm talking about the UPI, which is the Unified Payment Interface in India, right? If you if you are anywhere close to the payments or the financial services, I'm sure you must have heard about and know about the UPI. It is the real-time payment system in India, which has started in 2016. All right. Today, it is the epitome of the digital payments in the world, right? India is leading the world in the digital payments. And the way it happened over the period of time, because India have been focused on building the digital public infrastructure and the digital public goods. So, again, coming back to the Jay's point, it's about the monopoly. We need to be very cautious about the kind of infrastructure that we are going to build up and how we are going to bring the private companies and build up that public private partnership over the period of time. But it's not all hunky dory, right? Even UPI has made a mistake in terms of, when I say mistake, it happens when any technology which is growing up over the period of time. UPI has created another challenge for the government where it is a market concentration, right? Over 50% of the market is owned by one of the largest players. But that happens. That's a part and parcel of the game. So we got to be cautious. Why I said about this morning incident, right, and where I was the witness to launch of the Singapore and India UPI link. So now it not only for the country. It is not. It hasn't only enabled the people in the country to make real-time payments, but it is also enabling the other countries in the world to make real-time payment a reality, and not only for the in the country but the cross-border payments as well. So that was a
Right.
moment this morning where pay now from Singapore and India UPI has linked together, so the people can make the cross-border payments using the mobile phones and reducing the significant cost. And that's the use of the technology that we are talking about.
Right, and interoperability that you've also
Precisely.
bringing is essentially. So it's better. Do you think because I don't know that we have another decade to move human behavior on. I think we need to accelerate, but storytelling and the metaverse. Do you think, what can you share, because I know you're passionate about this topic of how storytelling through the metaverse and the use of the technology, whether it's metaverse or AI or chat GPT or any of human assisting technologies, if we choose to apply them that way, can help us accelerate that mindset shift that is the foundationally critical to making any of this happen, because all of this we need to accelerate. Of course, regulatory is behind because they don't have the creative foresight for it. So how could they regulate something they don't understand or know, not technically nor sociology wise or anything for that matter, until it's in the past. So Elisabetta, how do you feel about that, and what do you think we can do to accelerate?
Well, more than accelerate, I think that we see things from like I would say an art-tech perspective. Okay, we don't produce technology, but of course we understand what you have to do to mitigate the potential negative effect of technologies and the way that you have to create them. But however, when we talk about humanity and technology, I think one of the most important thing is also to ensure empathy. You're talking about storytelling, immersive storytelling, empathy to promote connection and well-being and what it will be. The metaverse in the future and what is like Web3. And to be, let's say, habitable and usable to its full potential, the metaverse must be a dynamic virtual place full of characters with a very defined and recognizable identity and history. Let's say that just as the cities as regions in the physical world are loaded with the symbolism and traditions and culture in the metaverse, immersive storytelling will be pivotal in this sense. And this actually brings new and complex narrative challenges. If you think about like a citizen environment, it is essential to give a history to a clear identity to virtual environment. Sometimes I'm scared about like hearing people say, okay, you are an artist, you can do whatever you want in the metaverse. Okay, what's going to happen? And like engaging learning environments. I mean, academics will find themselves replaced sometimes, by AI teachers or become edutainers. They need to work with developers, creatives, storytellers to create meaningful experiences for students to experience. Sorry for the double word. And let's talk about the story-based cut, because we will have, you mentioned interoperability, and think about this. I mean, with stories and the values that can lead to interoperability in the metaverse, of course, this will imply that people, we all know, can move, their avatar or the avatars from one platform to the other, from one metaverse of origin to a complex different one. And so the use of creativity and storytelling, it's pivotal because of stories guide and inspires us all. And every single thing that you think or do in your life is influenced by a story, if you think about that, created by you or by others. And then, we talk about communities together and we interact with each other through stories. Humanity itself is a great collective story. And imagination is a storytelling, basically. Together we can build the multiverses or metaverses full of meaning, intriguing, cohesive places. And you tell and create, will give life to other stories. But they must be really like full of ethics, because I really believe that, once again, stories precede reality or experience. This is very pivotal. Talking about technologies is something in humanity that must be understood very well.
Miranda, I would love to hear your.
Yeah, no, if I could build on what Elisabetta was saying, I think another key aspect of this is having a diverse and inclusive workforce for the individuals that are actually building XR technology, whether it be the hardware, the software. We as the industry, I think, need to make a more concerted effort to make sure that we're reaching out to underserved communities or minority communities in particular. And last year, the XR Association launched the XR for All Foundation to try and identify what needs to be done to ensure that kids from high school can experience XR technology and see that type of career pathway for them, because there is a accessibility gap for these types of technologies. The costs of headsets is not necessarily in a place where everyone can access them, or not everyone, even in the US and certainly in many places around the world, don't have broadband access. So we also need to invest equitably in the infrastructure that will support this type of technologies in the future of spatial computing. And then from the regulatory perspective, I think that we've mentioned many times that regulators are going to be far behind where the technology is. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for there to be industry-led best practices here. We don't need to wait, and we shouldn't wait for regulators to step in. So I think that bringing together diverse stakeholders to have these types of can be difficult conversations is going to be important, with the recognition that I think Jay might have mentioned we're building these technologies on the existing internet, on existing data. Existing regulations will and should apply in terms of data protection to consumer protection. So while it is an exciting new future, XR, the metaverse, is not developing in a regulatory vacuum. And I do think that there's an interesting trend where a lot of the conversations around online safety, data protection are happening at a global and multilateral level. So the Global Online Safety Regulators Network was announced last year, bringing together governments from Australia, Fiji, the EU to kind of build out a framework for regulatory coherence. I don't think we'll ever see a world in which everyone's going to adopt the exact same regulations, in the US as well as in South Africa, but at least we can build towards more coherence and alignment. And I think doing that from a perspective of ethics and humanity first is really important.
Yes, and every time we talk, and I can't help myself but think about access, and not how many people actually do not have even basic access, or even the energy to power such access. Meanwhile, in the same breath, we're talking about this level of immersive experiences on the other end. And the disparity is not based on geography, really. It's based on, or nature. It's based on mental models, economic models, human behavior, and where we place emphasis, and how we measure value. So what can we do today? What is possible now? Because I think everything and anything is possible right now. It's not about regulating. It's about, I think, because to get to that, you may perhaps consider, we may perhaps consider as a society, to reset our economic incentives. Do we really have scarcity, or do we have scarcity of generosity, of compassion?
Well, I would like to jump in here and just appreciate what Miranda said, right? I think this is a key word there: industry-led best practices and standard. Because ultimately, what happens when something happens, right? The Congress calls Mark Zuckerberg and the CEOs of the companies to ask them questions, to get enlightened about them, to try to really understand, right? So if the industry is setting the benchmark for best practices, and there's lots of actually groups for inclusion in terms of visibility, supporting disabled folks in VR worlds, as an example, right? There's lots of things going around, like children, right, and being in the virtual worlds, and how kids should be handled, interacted with, and so on. So I feel like safety and creating like a really great new digital landscape is the opportunity really we have, and the challenge and the responsibility. Now, as maybe one of my last comments, I just want to center answer your point, Ms. Lubna. Humans, historically cannot be really contained, right? Chris in his opening topic was talking about how can we ensure that good technology, remains positive, right? How can you ensure that the technology build remains positive? My position and my opinion, really, for whatever it's worth, is that you really cannot 100% ensure that. It's like a supermarket, right? There is junk food, there is healthy food, there is organic food, right? And there's some restaurants who have some supermarkets who have zero organic healthy solutions. I remember being in California a few years ago, and I went to this supermarket, and they had like thousands of products. I could not really consume any of one there, right? So then I go back in the car and go somewhere else. But I remember this stuck me because I feel the digital landscape and the metaverse will end up being the same. There's many apps. There's mega apps, bigger and smaller apps. There's the big e-commerce platforms, and there's maybe some smaller e-commerce platforms that are more impact driven. They give donations back, that do positive things. So as a consumer, you get to choose, right? Us as builders, all we can do is provide the options, right?
And having freedom of having options, and the choices we make today set the decisions we take today say frame the choices we have tomorrow. We're out of time, actually. I want to ask each of you to just give some closing remarks, and especially with a call to action of yourselves and of the community. Luiza, if you would.
No, I would just say that we have to start adapting to technology instead of trying to mold technology to what we feel it's comfortable and know what it is. Especially in the legal side, we are trying to put into all boxes new things instead of trying to create new boxes. So
That's
I
perfect.
would just say, yeah, let's try to adapt more and be more open to technology instead of trying to mold to what we're comfortable with. And I think like that we'll start having a more healthy relationship with technology instead of a more impulsive one.
Elisabetta? Unmute, please.
Sorry about that. I would love talking about technology instead at this time and not storytelling, immersive storytelling, that, entrepreneurs and brands will need to develop the skills needed to build security by design, equity by design, and privacy by design in their technologies. So to have like a security is mission critical, and in terms of product, also to democratize and emerging technology, reducing prices, and also like people inside in-house teams of companies and brands that will develop and maintain a clear community guidelines, as well as a moderate use behavior inside these also virtual worlds. It is important that people who will develop all policies are representative of all users, regardless who they are and where they are located.
Thank you. Sergio.
Yes, thank you very much. It's very inspiring to listen to all of you. Thank you so much for having me here. I think it's very important to also see how things are funded, where the money is coming from. This will play a big role of how all decisions will be taken and who are the stakeholders. And on a positive note, I would say we are just exploring. We are just the beginning. We'll do a lot of mistakes. A lot of things will fail. And we'll just move forward and learn from the mistakes that we have done and be a little bit, more experienced.
And with all the creatives that we're enabling, maybe we'll make it all very beautiful, and we bring out the artists in everyone. Dr. Ritesh.
So the way I see things moving forward is the best way approach, and that's my view completely. It's about the building the digital public infrastructure and the digital public goods, which addresses the multiple issues of the market concentration, having open source data, open source codes, open source AI, open data models, and that will enable and basically give opportunity for people to be part of it, as well as we don't have to rely on the policy. In that sense, we can implement the policies through the digital public infrastructure and the public goods itself. So one doesn't have to wait for the policy, and you can implement the policy through the infrastructure, and that is the way forward that I see.
Thank you, Miranda.
Well, first, thanks for having me here. I think I would leave the call to action to those that are listening from the industry to think about how they can engage and educate the policymakers in their region. Having policymakers around the world that understand this technology is going to be so important, and it will help build out support for things from research and innovation to investment in broadband to actually getting government themselves to leverage this technology. So I think the education piece is really important. And for those that are listening in the US, you can go to xra.org and encourage your member of Congress to join the Reality Caucus, which is a group of lawmakers that are leading the way for XR technologies in creating an environment of education. So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Really great to be here. I will echo as a closeout comment and call to action what everybody said, right? We're still very early. So to really appreciate that and to be encouraging to one another in the ecosystem, right? To appreciate the efforts that everybody's doing and really to start populating the metaverse. We have made, this is on our roadmap as we launch our platform this year to this first quarter actually, to enable the full circle ecosystem, right? Marketplace, no code studio, publish, deploy, create, monetize, metaverses in the browser, really the missing part. So the tools are here, right? The platform is here, but where's the populations, right? Where's the people in the world? So I would invite everybody to get your virtual world going, host an event, invite us, invite others. Right, because if we face it, besides a few meetups here and there, we have not yet moved to the 3D world, right? And that's what Ozone's been driving for, make it really easy and powerful for all of us to meet there. So that will be my call to action to everybody. Spend some time in the metaverse.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all. I'll just say that we all have a voice, and all of us here that are here live or who can hear us later. If you can hear us, then you too have a voice, and it can be heard, and it should. I invite you to echo it for those who don't have access, so that we can extend the access, so that we can all have a voice. And as we do have a voice, let's elect to choose ourselves, to apply ourselves to what matters, rather than elect others to think for us. With that, I thank you all. I know this gather will be very well. It was great for me so far. I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. May our gather be well.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
An honor. Thank you.